Good afternoon, Professor Bhattacharya. Welcome on behalf of IUSSTF and ITIHASA. Thank you for taking the time to talk to us today. We have a few questions about the AI in training and workforce development for you. And I'm joined by my colleague, also Dr. Bhattacharya, Dr. Chiranjib Bhattarcharya. So, Chaitali, the floor is yours. You can start with the first few questions. Thank you.
Thanks, Nishrita. So before we start, how about, sir, if you please tell us something about yourself, a little bit your expertise and the journey.
So thank you. Thank you for reaching out. So my name is Chiranjib Bhattarcharya. I'm a faculty member in the Computer Science Department of Indian Institute of Science. So I work in the area of machine learning, and my machine learning research started, I still remember, more than 25 years ago, when in my lab we were doing something and somebody asked me, what are you studying, or what are your subject? I said machine learning, and somebody said, what was that? And from now, everybody's speaking machine learning today. So it's been a while. So maybe I'll not bore yourself with what my research agenda is or things like that. So currently, if it is of any information, I'm currently the chair of the CS department of Indian Institute of Science. So maybe let's begin the discussion, which would be better for to discuss the things which you are really focused on, right?
Absolutely. So as you said, you are the chair of this department. How about you telling us something about the AI or the AI related graduate and the doctoral programs that are kind of offered at your institute? What is exactly unique about these programs? I mean, it would be really nice to hear.
Okay. So as I already told you, so ours is so 25 years ago I started actually doing research in machine learning, and prior to that, there's a very rich history of AI research in our institute. Probably in India at least, we are probably the first departments where courses related to AI was introduced in 1970s and things like that. So I consider myself lucky to be part of this institute. But coming back more to the point about what are the programs we have so far as AI research and education is concerned. So ours is a postgraduate institution. So we have master's program, which we call as MTech, both research and coursework. The difference is in research, MTech research students tend to do less number of courses, more focused research. And MTech coursework, they do primarily a lot of courses, but still have to write a thesis on a suitable topic. Now, over the years, a large fraction of the students will choose topics related to AI for their MTech dissertation. And that you can say is reflective of AI workforce, right? So in terms of training, our training essentially ensures that all students have reasonable background in all AI related subjects. And majority of them do pursue for the dissertations, AI related themes. And now what has happened is in the last 2 years, we have started probably the country's first MTech in AI. And of course, maybe that is contested whether we are the first or not. But having said that, we attract roughly 50 students per year in a ballpark number, right? For the MTech AI program. Whereas our MTech CS is roughly 50. Now, there are other sister programs in our institute, which will again consider, which has large overlap with AI. So roughly in our institute, you can say, I guess in every year, roughly 150 students would be there who are graduating every year, who either has in MTech AI or, have a very strong grounding in AI-related themes. But they'll have degrees such as MTech in CSA, computer science, or MTech in electrical engineering and things like that, or MTech in computational data science. So roughly you can say 150 students every year is passing through our institute as a master's program. Now we also have a doctoral program So there you can see at any given point of time, I mean, I'm not really on top of numbers, but ballpark calculation shows roughly 40 to 50 students would be there, PhD scholars. Our PhD is very rigorous. It's a 5-year PhD program usually. And so 40 to 50 scholars are easily there, even more.
So these PhD students, what is the kind of degree do they get? What are they called as PhD in AI? Or
No. Yeah. So we don't say PhD in AI, but PhD will be given from the Faculty of Engineering, but the thesis topic would be largely related to AI and things like that. So when I say 40 to 50 students, see, now the other interesting thing which has happened is now AI is slowly pervading all aspects of our life. So when I say 40 to 50, these are essentially like, let us say, the foundation or the core AI. Right? But now over the years, as we find, AI has been adopted in many, many scientific disciplines as well. If you count all of that, it would be more like easily 200 students, I would say, in our campus. So if AI or applications of AI in their own area, for somebody who want to use AI in, let us say, materials engineering, right? So that's AI is the subject of AI is getting enriched by that interaction. So if you count it in broader sense, it's more like 250 students would be for a doctoral degree they're pursuing.
That's very nice. So knowing more about the uniqueness bits, is there like in the course itself, as you said, different departments are also kind of giving, people are going to doing the AI bit. So what would be the uniqueness of these courses?
It is hard to say, because maybe what you're asking is what the difference between our program and anywhere else, right? So I mean, I think for the coursework structure, we are same as other, except that to the best of my understanding, we put little bit more focus on foundations, in mathematical foundations. So in that sense, it shows up as more courses they have to do in mathematical foundations than compared to other institutions. So I do not know your backgrounds, but please allow me to name a few subjects. So for example, we insist the students do a course in probability statistics, optimization, and then do machine learning. Whereas these two subjects often either are done in one course or would be taught as part of the machine learning course. So in other words, our students here come out much better prepared to take on, or much more well-grounded in the mathematical formulation foundations of AI. And over the years, that has held them, as you probably realize, that we have a long history of AI education and research. So over the years, we have seen that has held students at a much better position, because things will change very in the industry very soon, right? But because their foundations are strong, they can adapt better. But now, on the same token, I have to say that this is no comment on graduates of other institutions. Is it because I do not know enough of them, right? But anecdotal feedback which I get is that the students say that at the point when they did the courses, they probably didn't like it that much. But when they graduated and when they see now, say, no, this is a good thing that we went through that rigor. So maybe that can be considered one of the uniqueness. The second thing is, again, I do not have enough information on other institutions, but in our campus, actually, we see a lot more interaction between AI and other disciplines. For example, computer security and AI, 5G networks and AI. Maybe other institutions are doing these things. I have no information. But so these kind of interactions, at least to the best of my knowledge, I have not seen any Indian institutions at least. So so maybe that percolates down as a form of coursework in the research topics they choose and things like that. So that would be considered as one uniqueness.
So you have been a pioneer. You were like machine learning. You said something in 1970 you started this. What do you see as the key research areas in theory and foundation, as well as the emerging applications of AI?
Okay, so see, of course, the theory has changed a lot over the years, and so some amazing research has happened over the last at least 50 to 60 years, and that has today, we are reaping the fruits of it. Having said that, there are still lots of new things one needs to examine at the foundational level. So again, with apologies, because I do not know your background. I will name a few subjects. I do not know whether, that would be, uh, uh, you know, uh, I mean, I don't know how much, whether be bored or not with that. So, but let me go ahead and say that. See, this one of the things is the statistical foundations needs to be looked into much more seriously, and it has so new paradigms of learning, has emerged. Traditionally, there are two paradigms: supervised and unsupervised, of course, and also there is this other paradigm called reinforcement learning. This is a very high-level view of the area of machine learning. But now people are asking. So today we see the success of AI, right? This is governed because because of availability of what is so-called quote unquote labeled data. By labeled data, what we mean is, so you take a bunch of images. I'm just making this up, right? And you tag the images as dogs, image of a dog, image of a cat. Then you say, okay, look, I have given you this set of images. Images are images of dogs and cat. I've told you that also, right? Now, can you build a machine which will take an image? And you're also told the image can be either a dog or a cat, but tell me what it is. So that is basically a nutshell, building this intelligent machines, right? Now, and as you can see, this modern day AI has done amazing successes. Most of it is based on these kind of formalisms, this kind of things, right? Now, implicit in this is that availability of this kind of labels. That who labels? Take images you can click, right? Sensors are there, images, photographs you can click, but who will label that this image is the dog, cat? So this area of unsupervised learning you will see that will take center stage now, in the coming days. And there our theories are not at all good. A lot more needs to be done in exploration. So this is definitely one area, statistical foundations. Related to that is okay, I should, if I'm not related, or maybe in the interest of time, let's move on to other things. Now, one thing, as you see, is that today we are talking about AI. Today we are talking about AI workforce, things like that, right? Why? Because now we have demonstrated several machines which are working so well in practice, and it has the promise of changing our way we go about conducting our lives. That's why governments of the day, all aspects, industry, business, all are excited by this, right? Now, as AI has moved from, as you said, right, from our labs to the ground outside, right, is impacting people. Now, when it starts impacting people, then at that point, say, suppose if you go to a bank and you ask the bank for a loan, maybe an algorithm decides whether makes a recommendation that no, this person should not be given a loan. Now, a citizen can ask that, why did you refuse me a loan? So now people are demanding explainabilities, explanations, right? So this would be a huge new area, which is coming up. So that's one aspect. So example, explainable AI and things like that. So we talked about statistical foundation, unsupervised learning, explainable AI. There are many other things, but in the interest of time, just to add more variety to this discussion, I would say that another foundational area would be that very soon you will see that agents talking to one another and taking decisions and bargaining and things like that. Now you will see real life systems emerging like that. So that would require new paradigms which will require game theory and machine learning coming together. So these are some very few areas. I can name a few more, but probably in the interest of time, we can go forward. See, as a professor, I always see every day I wake up and I find the field has gone so far, and I find I have to learn more. So these are all, maybe I have to do more PhDs, I think, on these kind of topics. So maybe you have other questions. So we'll come back to this. If you have, I can tell you 10 more topics like this. But no.
Because my next question is also a little bit of in the same line only, as you said, like those different foundational areas that we're talking about. We were keen to know as to what aspects of the programs are doing very well, and what are some of the challenges and barriers that you generally face?
You mean our educational programs, you mean, right? Yes. So you see, what is very satisfying to see that our students are getting picked up by some of the leading companies in India and abroad, and that's why that is also, that also attracts students to our campus. I'm sure that's also true for other campuses as well. That's very satisfying to see. But what is even more satisfying to see when some of the students come back and say, no, the jobs they're doing, they really feel, they're contributing something. Of course, everybody needs to do a job to do their life, but it's more satisfying to say that whatever we are doing is impacting something. Those are rare, the few, but it gives us some satisfaction. So industrial absorption is good. I saw that's going on well. We, at least in our campus, ISC has a very strong presence in some of the top conferences and leading publishing venues. We're an university. Our main job is to ensure that we continue to produce high quality research as evidenced by publications. So that way we are doing well, in the sense that, of course, it can be better, and that's what it is. So those things are going on well, but I would rather focus on, as you said, that what are the challenges, right? Now, AI has moved. See, as I said, 25 years ago when we were doing AI, it's a university thing, right? Nobody knows machine learning is and all that, right? Now here today, US, you're asking questions, what can governments do and things like that. It has gone out in the field, right? So obviously, it also means the following: the leadership is no longer with academia. The leadership is with industry, with with government bodies, right? Because they would set the agenda, they do this and do that, right? So this creates a challenge. So that means we are no longer have the ability to define our own problems, if I may use the word. See, please, this shouldn't be mistaken as saying I'm saying academic freedom is impeached. I'm not at all saying that. Just to make it clear, all I'm saying is that leadership is moved on to industry, right? And now, so maybe there they see the latest problems and related. So the associated research labs in those industry, you will see there the best papers are coming out from that places, and we have to play second fiddle to them, right? So this is one challenge I see. Related to that is also, given that AI is a exciting thing, which is so sometimes attracting people to higher studies, that becomes a challenge, because sometimes they say that it's industry we should be contributing to industry and all that, right? So the motivation for doing higher studies and etc. becomes a challenge. So basically, in academic environment, sustaining research increasingly becoming a little challenging. But I think it's a good challenge to have.
Yeah, this is exactly what I was wanting to know. I mean, the industry is absolutely plural. They give such excellent packages. AI is the buzzword. So my next question was a lot similar to what your challenge is. How do you pursue these young graduates to, take up research careers? I mean, are there anybody who comes to you and say, no, I want to do PhD and I want to be another professor in AI? Is that a path that, are there students like that who comes to you?
No, what is happening is, so first of all, we also try to, so we have to, let's separate out two things. One is the subject when I choose to do PhD on, and the profession which I later embrace. And previously, I would say, unfortunately, it was already said, if you do PhD, you are geared for an academic life. I think that's a very unhealthy thing to say. The reason is, see, it then says you're straitjacketed to do this, right? But now the thing is that you can choose to do a subject. If you can choose to pursue a PhD in AI, but you may want to join an industrial lab as well. You don't have to be a professor. But the question then is that, okay, I want to join academia, but what is the next exciting thing which I will learn and do and things like that? So that is the value proposition we have to come up with, and we are trying to come up with our own ways. So the economic incentive is that I mean, a lot of students see that if they do well, if they can do some original creative research, right, and they can choose to either join academia or join industrial labs. So things don't close, doors don't close. And given this day and age, if we can ensure that that the smooth transfer, or rather, no, that's not the right word. I mean, in this day and age, if the student can transition at ease to a industry or academia, I think that is the best of both worlds you can get, right? Things which you do, put you in a position that so you get to choose what you have to do. So, so the motivational. So students do come, but we actually I tell them that you just because you have done PhD does not mean that you will be a professor somewhere. You want to be a professor, then you have to love teaching and academic research and all that. So that's a separate value system, right? And of course, we try to ingrain in that. But I'm saying just because PhD is something, that's a thing which we choose to specialize in. And this is a certain other value proposition which we have to embrace. And some students do tend to do that. But because of this large-scale industrial research labs coming up, there is still a flow of students who want to be part of that.
Moving a little bit to a not different, but another question which says, where do you actually see the futuristic demand, that demand of AI or AI-related professions? And do you see that there is any kind of partnership, that actually is kind of exists or is going to come between the industry and the business and the academia?
Maybe there are two questions here, right? One question
we can do one by one. Yeah, sure.
Yeah. So first question is, what are the futuristic? Can I say what are the futuristic applications of AI? Is that what you're asking?
What are the key sectors where you see the huge demand of AI or AI-related professionals?
See, there are
in the future.
There are two things. Even in this question, there are two aspects which I'm really okay. Let me say it, or then I'll see where the confusion is. At least in my mind. See, there's a lot of demand for AI technologies, but that may or may not translate into number of AI professionals. See, this is nothing like a car building industry. For a car building industry, you look at the industry, right? You build a car, you need, in a work floor, so many things are happening, right? Because this is a highly automated sector. So AI technologies, there's a great demand. But whether they will translate into large number of AI professionals, that part I'm not sure. However, so first thing is, okay, what sectors would AI technologies impact? I would say all sectors. The way you, as you can already see, the way you order food, etc., right? All have changed. So all sectors you will see, so for example, now whether if you're conscious about it now, even what news you read or what movies you see, though we tend to think ourselves as free, but probably we are we can't escape the social media presence and things like that, right? So more such things would come in our ways, right? So in all sectors, AI technologies will pervade. But if I have to pick things which are close to my heart, I think AI in healthcare would be a game changer, especially for a country like India. It may also help in generating a lot of need for AI workforce. So it will have many. See, healthcare is a very okay. When I say healthcare, I should be more careful here. So when I'm using the word healthcare, I think I'm using it more holistic sense. By that, what I mean is from the clinical end, where somebody comes and takes blood samples from your house, to actually the drug discovery end. These are very, very broad, like a canvas. So all this AI technologies will definitely, impact. However, and it would also require some sort of AI workforce, given because the need for medicines. See, one of the sustainable development goals is health. SDG goals is health, right? Now, keeping that in mind, I see lots of these things. Also, I believe this is not a sector, but I would say that you will see a lot more adoption in government offices related to AI, right? This may also generate in a lot of specialized workforces maintaining those systems. Yeah, so I'll stop at that, on this thing. So this you said about what are the sectors. I think I answered both your questions or no?
Yeah, you do. Nishita, I request my colleague Nishita.
Professor Bhattacharya, you did tell us about the programs at IISc, and I know you said that the demand for AI technologies are a lot, but not really may not be as much for AI professionals as of now. You spoke about IISc, but in your opinion, are other academic institutions in India ready to take on the training of the AI workforce needs?
I have very little information what other institutions do, but from a limited interaction with my industry colleagues and when I see the graduates, that applies to our graduates as well. I think if we really now this is restricted to what I see. So that is this all purely anecdotal and only related to India. We cannot comment on other countries and all that, right? But one legitimate goal, if you can ask, is that okay, are we world beater in some sense? So we are not. So there are, but we are getting there. We're getting there. Every day things are improving, and our competitive edge is improving. Now to keep up the competition, I think we need our AI training. I mean, would require. I mean, probably we lack more hands-on experiential learning in our curriculums, and that shows up in the students also. So I do not know how other countries they have. Maybe they also have the same problem. I have no idea. But now the experiential learning can only come through much more closer interaction with the industry or more hands-on projects, things like that, right? So that is why, if in the questionnaire which you sent, right? So one of the things I would do is repeatedly coming down to the same point that students should do more internships with high-end companies. By high-end, I mean companies which offer high-end AI projects, right? So that would build that gap. So now so maybe stress on foundations with efficient, but also nicely balanced engineering skills training, which needs to be, of course, grounded in practicalities of today's life, which only industry can provide. So all these things should come together in some way, right? So any institutions which tries to do these three things, I think that would be the right training. But at this point, I will not be able to comment on what other institutions do. But I would say that you can ask these three questions and say, what are you doing? And that will tell us something, right?
So in fact, Professor Bhattacharya, you have actually answered my next question, which is going to be, specific recommendations for enhancing the quality of graduate degrees in AI. So you kind of, the previous question went into this. So, you've made these three recommendations, particularly about the experiential internships. You also said that, the leadership in this is with industry and private sector and the government. So my next question is, what can Indian federal agencies and institutions do in terms of new initiatives and investments in infrastructure to prepare, the AI workforce of the future? And, in doing that, can you comment on the role of partnerships between federal agencies, academia, and industry in accelerating this, AI workforce development?
See, this is a thing which I have very little understanding, because it's one thing to say from a complete outsider's point of view what should be done, but see, all these agencies also have their own constraints. It's not very simple to say, do this, but governments have things, publicly funded, a lot of things, this and that, right? So having said this preface, let me just say a few things and let us see. I mean, this probably more, maybe everybody will say that I have not, maybe it's more like a first response to this. So I think what the government should do is enable more, so probably I'm coming from this view that you have to enable more experiential learning. Experiential learning will come from doing things. So if the government can they ensure projects whose outcomes can be, let us say, some publicly usable software, right? Or a publicly usable product which impacts life. By life, I mean, a public life, right? So this a government is well mandated to do. And if they can enforce these kind of things, right? So the funding can be directed towards that in a holistic way. But this requires huge amount of funding. It is goes beyond funding one PhD student and master student. It has to be a lot more than that, right? So, so for example, if I'm not very conversant in the US funding patterns, but my friends tell me that in US they do the following: that industry and academia can bid together for government projects, right? And so here also government can try to enforce that. I think government is clearly doing it. It's not they're not doing it, but some such like thing where so government can say a challenge problem, solve this challenge problems, right? A challenge problem can be just ensure that in Bangalore city, um, you can go from one place to the other within 10 minutes. I'm just this is impossible. But things like that, like a challenge problem, which will involve multiple agencies working together and all that, right? So this can be one, but this, as I said, this is very easy to state, but very hard to do. The second thing is somewhere government should try and see if some funding direction can be given where, startups are more easily created in universities themselves. I mean, there's a lot of focus on startups and all that. That is true. But even then, I find that there is a big gap between the expected number of startups we would like to see and the quality of them, like a country like India should produce, right? So whether now I frankly I have no clue. I mean, and we cannot say there's a government job to be able to do it. So, but some focused thinking towards that. So where the projects related to startups and things like that and US India initiatives, can they do few things that would be nice. So the third important thing, which is more concrete, is if government gives explicit incentives to create high quality data sets. I talked about systems, I talked about people, right? But a simple thing like create high quality data sets of various kinds. If that can be given prominent focus, don't worry about how it will be used, but just create it. Why am I saying this is because one of the problem with industry has leadership, right? Now what is this? So by that, what we mean is that industry has the first access to data. So they are creating, they're creating the data and all that, they're analyzing it. So they get the first rights to see a more exciting problem. So now the ability to invent new technologies and things like that would depend on the problems you face. Necessity is the mother of invention, right? So unless you see those problems in the first hand, so that is you see those data at the first hand, right? And India, the main challenge is we have so many problems, and AI definitely can help in many of them. But the first thing is, as an AI researcher, will say, okay, where is the data for it? It is not difficult to collect, but it is expensive in the sense that, I mean, it would be very hard for a PhD student to go and collect data. So one has to create mechanisms for that, where data is created and things like that, right? That's a position itself, I would say. And once that is, created, I would see more exciting things will happen after that. Having said that, why I understand the government is not doing any of this. It is trying to encourage some things, but maybe it can be given a lot more push, I guess.
Thank you for that, Professor Bhattacharya. You know that IUSSTF, our mandate is to promote and catalyze collaborations between India and the US. So, from the Indo-US point of view, what do you see as opportunities for collaborations in the AI workforce and capacity building space? And do you have any models that you would recommend to foster these US-India partnerships in this area?
Definitely there's a lot. The one very exciting thing in the United States is in many ways US still sets the standards for us, in the sense that so far as research is concerned, so far as excellence is concerned, and things like that. So that way, Indo-US things, there's a lot to learn from each other, and India can offer. Though as we say, US is now the leader, but see, India has so many. As we see, there's a lot of population here, there, and now over the last 50, 60 years, our population is more educated, more healthier than what it used to be. Our universities are getting better. and AI means data and all that. So we are developing more capacity, etc. Right. So future definitely would lie with a country like India. So maybe so I think it is a win-win situation, but has to be formulated right in many ways. So definitely there is this motivation. Yes, they should cooperate. Now the question is how. And the US and India have been working on various models, and I think all of them, probably more than me, you are better placed to evaluate them because you have seen so many models working, what has worked and what has not worked. So I do not have that kind of insight in what new to propose. However, I see that any system which fosters, or rather any mechanism which fosters easy access to data, right, and also any system where this uh, where you can use uh, um, not data. What I meant to say is systems which are developed there, and which we can use here, and vice versa, right? So maybe anything which creates large amount of data sets in a joint effort, that would be very, very useful. Uh, so, so for example, one can take some focus themes, let's say, such as agriculture. Let us say. So, so the US, among many things, I'm told, is a leader in IoT in agriculture. So now large-scale sensor processing, and so now, see now, so now to maintain those sensors, if it's possible to remotely monitor them, that will create jobs here. Number one. But that's not the intent behind this research and other things. But the idea is that if can that be replicated here? Let us say. If so, how? So some such kind of themes, if we take and try to replicate it here, that may be very fruitful for us. However, I have no clue on how to enable them. What kind of models like institutions like IUSSTF can do, I have no clue. But but any model, if you can take a model and say, does it enforce any of these things? I think it's a good thing to do. It's not a suggestion, but it's not a model, but how to evaluate a model. That's what I'm trying to say.
I think we've covered the questions we have, Chaitali. Professor Bhattacharya, I was just wondering whether does IISc have partnerships with industry or businesses on these the MTech and the PhD programs or the AI programs that you have at IISc? Are there any specific partnerships that the institute has with industry and for these programs, for these graduates or from these programs?
See, I mean, many of us have, research or consulting agreements with many companies. They are Indian companies, they are multinationals, foreign multinationals, etc. There are also most of these programs are generously supported by CSR grants from several agencies. But let me use this opportunity to also, if it's on the web, right, I would welcome other companies also to generously consider us for their CSR donations, because that would greatly help from the students here. So, so here I would say that. I mean, I don't have a number of companies, but I would say that across our institutions, many projects are supported through private companies. So that's why we are not, I mean, see, government still, we are very thankful. Government still gives the students salaries and all that, right? But the additional expenditures are often met through private funding.
Thank you for that, Professor Bhattacharya. Chaitali, do you have any other questions?
Thank you very much. They were really a lot of very useful insights. We're really happy to have your views and all. Any last thoughts that you would like to say or share or feel before we wind up?
So I don't know what to say, because this is, see, I'm not generally I find myself like a student now, and who has not done his homework well. So these are subjects I am not very, as I was trying to emphasize again and again, I have very little knowledge about things and on these matters. But I would definitely welcome. I'm sure you're consulting many other colleagues who will hopefully may be able to provide alternate suggestions which will be more actionable and things like that. So this exercise needs to be done. So I thank you for conducting the exercise. Hopefully, it translates to something actionable on the ground. Yeah. So
Thank you so much, Professor Bhattacharya. We will continue to keep interacting with you as we move along this initiative. We'll need your kind of advice and guidance as we move along. So we'll keep this channel of communication open. Thank you so much for taking the time to speak with us today. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you for your kind words. Look forward. Right.
Nice.
Bye-bye.
Okay then. Bye.